I am from GlobalNet 21, and today we have Claudine with us talking about social enterprise. I would like to introduce a little bit about GlobalNet 21. We are a group of people who provide a platform for you to do internet, to do webinar and host meetings. We have about 75 meetings a year, and we have about 20,000 members. What we are doing is that Francis started more than 10 years ago with meetings, and because the audience has expanded to international, so we started doing webinars. The webinars have started the last 2 or 3 years. We talk about different subjects, and tonight we have Claudine talking about social enterprise. She will explain further what they are doing and how they are doing it. The presentation will be around 20-25 minutes, and when she finished, you have the chance to put questions, and I'll put the questions to her, and then she will explain to you further. So welcome to Claudine, and you can start.
To everyone who's on Global Net 21, thank you so much for this platform. My name's Claudine Reid. I am a former Cabinet Office Social Enterprise Ambassador. For the last 20 years, I've been running a multi-award-winning social enterprise called PJ's Community Services. As well as that, I've been advising government, both the British government and other international governments around social enterprise, and more importantly, around its impact across communities, across cities, and across countries. Really what I'd like to speak to you today is about social enterprise, and really if there are any social entrepreneurs or people considering starting a social enterprise, and the impact of social enterprise, and you as an individual social entrepreneur, how this impacts on your growth environment, your personal growth environment. And in my experience, I've had lots of conversations around how do social entrepreneurs develop themselves, how do they develop their respective enterprises in order to make the level of impact. So I'm going to try and expand two kind of schools of thought around the hardcore business model of social enterprise, as well as the softer leadership and personal development skills around social enterprise. As you see here, my role is a former Cabinet Office Social Enterprise Ambassador, and more recently I've joined the John Maxwell team in the US, and I'm a trainer, speaker, coach for the John Maxwell team. My social enterprise world, if you like, started a few years ago, 20 years ago to be exact, when I became one of the co-directors of PJ's Community Services. And just as a model to kind of give you a framework of where we are, how my experience spans, I've been working across the health and social care sector, providing care in the community in the form of personal care, domestic care to older people who are housebound and physically frail. We've employed around 3,000 people during that period of time, and the impact of care in local communities, if you'll see some of the conversations now in the local in media about the drive for government to encourage people to stay in their homes for longer periods of time because of the cost, the astronomical cost of providing care. Well, my organisation provides that care and allows and empowers those individuals to stay in their homes. We also provide training and development services to marginalised groups around social enterprise and leadership development. The reason why the groups are marginalised is because they often have difficulty in accessing mainstream services. And when we look at marginalised groups, we're mainly focusing on women, young people, BME, that's Black, minority and ethnic communities, and faith communities. And then my experience also spans working with women across international communities for the purposes of helping them to raise their aspirations around social enterprise, and more importantly, the impact that social enterprise has on any given community. So if we look at really the definition of social enterprise and what it actually is. For those of you who are not aware, a social enterprise is an organization that applies commercial strategies in order to maximize improvements, predominantly socially and environmentally. This may include maximizing social impact, and the stakeholders have a very key role to play in all of this. So we are essentially, social enterprises are essentially businesses, but they are driven by social or environmental goals. They are not driven by the need to maximize profit for shareholders or for the owners, but more about reinvesting into their organizations, whether it be environmentally or socially, in order to provide a greater level of impact to the communities in which they serve. So just some bite-sized information. In the last annual survey of small businesses across the UK, in 2010, there were estimates of around 68,000 social enterprises in the UK. And just to kind of give you a bit of a framework, most social enterprises are concentrated in the most deprived communities in any country. So in my work across the States, in my work across the Caribbean and in Asia, when I've gone to visit different social enterprises, you'll find them in those communities where there are some of the most severe challenges in those respective communities. In the UK, social enterprises contribute at least £24 billion to the economy. So right there, you can see the value, you can see the impact that social enterprises have. And in terms of employment, on the last count, we saw around 800,000 people employed by social enterprise. So what we can see there is, for as much as those respective organizations have a drive around social goals, they are operating as strong, viable, sustainable commercial organizations that are providing employment across communities, that are adding value in different ways in the environmental field and in the social sector. Different examples of social enterprise. Many of you may be familiar with Divine Chocolates, for example. They're a fair trade chocolate company owned, or co-owned, I should say, by the cooperative based in Ghana. There are others that you can see on the screen. Eco, where they take industrial waste materials and turn them into stylish luggage, handbags, and they donate 50% of their profits to the firefighters charity. The Big Issue, for example, many of you may have seen some of the sellers on the high streets in the UK selling the Big Issue magazine. All of these here are different examples of social enterprise and the value that they add to the economy. In terms of international models of social enterprise, we have organizations like Kitchens with Mission. They're based in San Francisco. What they do is run a kitchen, basically. They train with top chefs within the San Francisco region. Those top chefs train those individuals who are unemployed or at risk of long-term unemployment. And by the time they finish training them, they are now then ready to work in some of the top restaurants within the local area, again, decreasing unemployment and, more importantly, adding value to the community and being able to uplift those respective individuals so that they become contributing members of society. So again, what we're looking at here from a social enterprise perspective is the way how a commercially run organization can have social goals that is about driving the maximization of the value of the community as opposed to only driving shareholder profit. So the case for social enterprise talks about unity, it talks about community cohesion, it talks about entrepreneurship, it talks about balance, it talks about the triple bottom line, looking at the environmental factors, the social factors, and of course the financial benefits. And those can be those have cross-cutting themes across many different areas in which we work in. Now, if I can look at a strategic approach for any social enterprise and any commercial run organization for that matter. Here we have the 7S model, which is a strategic model for business growth and personal advancement. In the middle circle, you see we have shared values. Most social entrepreneurs or social enterprises run because they have a set of shared values, and it's those shared values that kind of pull them into the management of what those social goals can potentially look like. It's the shared values of community cohesion. It's the shared values of adding benefit, of adding value to the community, both environmentally and socially. It's those shared values that carry such a different weight and recognition to the contribution that the social entrepreneurs are bringing to those respective community groups. When we look at strategy of a social enterprise or a social entrepreneur, we're looking at where do those organizations see themselves in the next 5, 10, 15 years in terms of their short-term, mid-term and long-term goals. We're also looking at the impact that those strategic decisions will have upon their respective community groups. We're looking at aligning that strategy with any political developments, technological developments, economic developments, social developments, and environmental developments that are happening within those respective community groups, within those respective cities, and having a look at the real hardcore impact that social enterprises and social entrepreneurs can add to those respective groups. When we look at systems, very on its purest level, on its most basic level, we're looking at the systems that social enterprises are running, and this really encourages us to put our commercial hat on, our business commercial hat on, because with that commercial hat we're looking at how do you run a viable, sustainable organizations, what systems are in place to ensure sustainability, to ensure functionality, and to ensure impact. So again, we're kind of focusing and honing in on those respective areas that will carry the weight of any commercial organization. The same can be transferred to a social enterprise. And then when we look at structure, we're looking at the structure of those organizations. And in my experience, most social enterprises tend to have as flat structure as possible in order to keep any hierarchical challenges to a minimum. And those hierarchical challenges are mainly centered around bureaucracy and how the organization will actually run. When we look at the brown circles, when we look at the brown circles, we're looking at the more softer skills of staffing, style, and leadership skills that can be employed to run a social enterprise. And it's those brown circles I really want to focus the thrust of this presentation on, around developing your personal growth environment, because it's that personal growth environment that helps bring about the influence that's required in order to have the impact that we're looking for as social entrepreneurs. So there are 7 key areas. There are 7 key areas around your personal growth environment for social entrepreneurs. And all of these 7 key areas really focus in on the soft skills, but they are also very heavily intertwined into the influence that you have as an individual and the influence that you have as an organization. Now, starting at the top circle with capacity, and having a look at how your capacity for more can be developed. So if we're talking about then developing your personal growth environment, there comes a time where as social entrepreneurs, we've got to have a look at how much can we manage? What does our capacity for more look like? And more importantly, the team that we are working with, the team that we are operating with, how can we grow that capacity in order to have the level of impact that we are looking at? If we flick back through to the first slide where we were looking at the level of contribution and the financial contribution that social enterprises bring to the British economy, we're looking at a rough in excess of 24 billion pounds, employing around over 800,000 people. If we're looking then at that, we're looking at what our capacity is as social entrepreneurs to add weight and to add value to that space. We then move on to capability and doing a personal SWOT analysis of our capabilities as social entrepreneurs to again add value to those respective areas, that we can engender growth, that we can engender the impact that we are looking for. Now, when we look at that SWOT analysis, we're analysing our own respective SWOTs, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, both as individuals and as organisations, and having a look at the balance that we're able to contribute in terms of our influence to bring about a real lasting and sustainable change. Then we move on to consistency. And the consistency in the space of how frequently are we able to add value to those respective areas. So we're not talking about one hit wonders here. We're talking about a consistent level of impact that can be measured, that can be evaluated, that can be monitored, so that we're better able to assess the impact that that respective social enterprise or those respective social entrepreneurs can be having in their respective spaces. So their space could be environmental, their space could be social. More importantly, we're looking at the value that they're bringing to that space. When we move on and we talk about chemistry, these are really the soft skills of enterprise and social enterprise development. The chemistry that you have with your team, the chemistry that you have with the people that you're serving, the chemistry that you have with your stakeholders, and how you're able to utilize the soft skills of your chemistry development to bring about influence so that you can have a real lasting impact. One of the biggest challenges that I've experienced speaking to many different social entrepreneurs was the conversation around confidence and what confidence means and how it can be enacted out. And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned about confidence, especially with some of my colleagues in social enterprise, is that confidence comes with competence. So it becomes necessary to become more competent in our space, in our respective areas of business that we're operating in, building our areas of competence, managing our staff, for example, managing our finances, for example, managing the different spaces in which we operate in. So our confidence levels come when the more we are able to become more competent in those respective areas. Then we have a look at communication and how we communicate, again, with our respective stakeholders in order to increase our levels of influence in those respective areas. So again, if we're looking at the 7 points for developing a personal growth environment and looking at what that growth environment does for our respective levels of influence, our communication becomes key. Our communication of our vision, of our mission, of our values, how we communicate that information to our stakeholders. And lastly, a real sort of touchy-feely subject, if you like, around courage. and the courage to stand up for those marginalized communities, the courage to stand up for the values in which we have invested in, the courage to stand up and really be able to monitor and evaluate those things that are important to us as social entrepreneurs and those things that are important to us as social enterprises, as the respective organizations. And it's with this in mind that I've had the opportunity to grow my organization. We started in 1992 and we've been trading for the last 26 years. And it's a combination of all of these elements of social entrepreneurship, but more importantly, that personal growth environment and the development of those soft skills that have really helped to catapult us into a different sphere of influence, into a different phase of business growth, of social enterprise growth, being able to connect on an international basis, being able to connect with communities, cities and countries in order to demonstrate the value that we're able to bring to any of the respective spaces that we operate in.
It is very interesting to hear about international work that you are doing. How did you start internationally?
So probably around about 2010, I attended the Social Enterprise World Forum in San Francisco, and then again in 2014 in South Korea. And it was through that journey of attending those respective events that we were able to kind of take a real good look at the landscape of social enterprise internationally and have a look at its contribution to those respective communities. The work then also went on to the Caribbean and across Europe, where we were working with a number of small community groups in Jamaica, in Holland, for example, in Spain. And in those respective groups, we're able to have real hardcore conversations with the leaders of those social enterprises and offer a significant amount of value, a significant amount of experience, and a significant amount of structure. Because what we found was that those organizations were doing some fantastic pieces of work, but often lacked the credibility or they lacked the connectivity with regards to political or government organizations. Some of them lacked the financial sustainability with those respective community groups in which where they were based. So the work was able to start in small groups, and then it grew into larger organizations where we were able to connect and really see the value of the impact that we were making.
Yes, so you are saying you are talking about your organization or the combination between you and the organization that you are helping.
Yes.
Yes. So when you work with those people, the international organization, you work with consultants, or you are going straight into elderly people and vulnerable people and help them directly?
Okay, so let me clarify. When I'm working with those organizations, I'm predominantly going in as a consultant to help those organizations. So they are not necessarily all older people. Sorry, their service users are not necessarily all older people. It's just that my organization deals with older people. My organization as a social enterprise deals with working, my clients are older people, vulnerable adults. When I'm working internationally, I'm going in as a consultant, working at the grassroots level, working with government organizations to help add value, to help add capacity to those organizations in those respective countries. So we're going into almost troubleshoot, if you like, different areas around their systems, around their strategy, around their structure, around the skills base of the leaders of those respective social enterprises, so that we can offer lasting, sustainable structures that will help their organizations become more robust and more sustainable. All of that comes from the experience base, the academic base, if you like, and the knowledge base that we have built up here in the UK over the last 20 years.
Oh, so you have helped them. So do you have any success story from San Francisco? from 2010, you started the work, and since then, what happened?
Yes. So the best success stories are those organisations who we've worked with for probably a few years, that no longer need our support anymore, which is a little bit of a dichotomy in that you're trying to encourage organisations not to be reliant on you. So our work started with the observations in San Francisco, but the more tangible results can be seen across the Caribbean and in Europe. So, for example, there's an organisation in Jamaica that we work with called Young Women and Young Men's Mentoring with Mentors with Purpose. So we've been working with Lanicia and the team in Jamaica for a few years now, and more recently we organised an event for secondary aged children, very similar to an organisation that we a TV program that we have here in the UK called Dragon's Den. In the Caribbean, they call that similar program, they call it Shark Tank. So we've been working with a number of organisations, the Branson Centre and other local organisations in the Caribbean, to help raise the aspirations of the young people in that particular space. And then it kind of develops into mentoring programs for those individuals who are developing their level of entrepreneurship. So our success stories are based around the entrepreneurship advice consultancy that we are providing to those individuals who are starting social enterprises. And then 2 or 3 years down the line, when they no longer require our services because they are now no longer fledgling organizations, but they have grown to become sustainable, or they have moved on from the growth phase in which they are in to require a different level of support.
Heather, she's asking, your influence would grow as your social enterprise grow in success. So when you measure and demonstrate of the added value that you add to the work that you have done, so in which case that people, new social enterprise should focus on to grow their credibility? What areas should they focus on?
So if I may go back to the slide.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
You just share your screen and...
Yeah. Okay, so in answer to Heather's question, it's a really, really great question. Thanks very much, Heather. In my experience, what I found is as your level of impact increases, then so does your level of influence, because your level of influence is really around your ability to bring about transformation in the area that you've been called to work in. So in the case of PJ's Community Services, our level of influence grew in the social enterprise space. It grew as leadership consultants and transformation agents, if you like, in the social enterprise space, because that's exactly what we were doing. And I found that as we were growing our social enterprise and being able to offer support, advice, guidance to other social entrepreneurs, our influence grew in that area, and that's where most of our consultancy work came from, if you like. So our capacity automatically grew from just providing health care services to now providing training programs to other social entrepreneurs. So my background is in business development, organizational development. So I now began to partner with other organizations to put a suite of accredited programs together that would empower other social entrepreneurs and other social enterprise organizations to be able to have the same level of influence, but at the same time run their organizations to the best of their ability. That influence also by default spilled over to increasing the capabilities of those respective individuals, because as your capacity for more increases, so does your capability to do more. That's also then linked to your level of consistency in terms of how your influence is developed. So over the last 10 years, that's probably where we have seen the the fastest growth and the fastest demonstration of our credibility around influence, around social entrepreneurship. But that came because we were very consistent at delivering quality, very consistent at delivering on our key performance indicators, where our core business was concerned, which is health and social care, but then also where the training and development was concerned. The softer skills, Heather, in answer to your question around chemistry, around confidence, around courage, are really internal things, so that we're talking about that personal growth environment. And part of it is really about stepping out of the comfort zone to doing things perhaps that you've never done before, experiencing different elements of business that we've never experienced before, but that comes because we're in a growth space, we're in a growth environment. And I think it was the Cass Business School that did a piece of research around entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, and whether or not they are really a help or a hindrance to a growing organization, and whether the realities of founders syndrome. So most social entrepreneurs who are the founding directors of their organizations, sometimes they can become a hindrance to the organization. But what looking at a personal growth environment does, and it allows you to kind of step back from the day-to-day activity of the social enterprise. So looking at the whole arena of social entrepreneurship and looking at what your influence does, looking at what your ability to create that environment does for you as an individual. It's a combination then of all of those things that I would say, in answer to your question, Heather, that help the social enterprise to grow, that helped us demonstrate our measurement of success.
So how can you give an example how you measure your success? Do you have some targets and you measure against it, or how do you measure? What kind of measurements do you take?
So from a purely commercial angle, we're looking at key measurements around staff retention, around the quality of the service, around our customer satisfaction figures, around the real kind of nuts and bolts of the service that we are delivering. So from a business perspective, we're looking at, on a weekly basis, the value that we're able to bring to the economy. Now, if we kind of step back into the care space, care is measured in terms of hours, and we deliver around 2,000 hours worth of care on a weekly basis. And it's the delivery of that care that helps us to measure the impact in the community. So if we were not providing care at that level, then those individuals would either be in nursing homes, they'd either be wards of the state, they would otherwise have to be providing services for themselves. Now, whilst the delivery of care in itself is not the only measure of a key performance indicator, it's a combination of the number of hours, of the staffing retention figures, of the quality of the service, of the measures that make a service good, excellent, or outstanding.
Yes.
Or requires improvement.
Yes. So we are talking about two different things. Number one thing is about the consultancy that you are giving to other people, try to help them to organize their organizations.
Yes.
And the other side of the business is to provide care to people, different kind of people. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So you measure, now we are talking about how you measure the quality of the care that you are giving to people.
That's right.
Yes. So how do you measure the consultancy that you provide to other people? So
using some of the indicators from some of the lead organizations that we're working with, so local authorities, local and central governments, some of those indicators are going to be around the sustainability and retention of those respective businesses. So for example, I'm doing a piece of work at the moment with a credit union, and one of the key performance indicators there will be the number of registered businesses, the number of registered social enterprises rather, the number of staff that they employ, their turnover, their level of sustainability, and their rate of growth as organisations. So those figures will be measured in their turnover on a year-on-year basis. So I'm providing consultancy to those individuals as social enterprises, but at the same time we're balancing two very different areas, if you like. We're balancing the growth of their business, but we're also balancing the growth of them as individuals, because I believe that in order to grow the business, you've got to be able to grow yourself. You've got to be able to increase your capacity for more. You've got to be able to increase your competencies and your capabilities. But one of the biggest hindrances for business growth would be the founder. It would be the individual. So in my work, I'm trying to balance those two key areas within those individuals to grow them as individuals and to grow their organization. One of the my curriculum tutor, John Maxwell, he calls it the law of the lid, because the lid is almost the cap on your effectiveness. It's the cap on how far you're able to go. So my role, if you like, is to help individuals raise that lid so that they can increase their capabilities.
So you are talking about, when you refer to individuals, you refer to the owner of the organizations.
That's right, yes.
Okay.
The owner or the social entrepreneur. Yes, I've been using the terms interchangeably. I'm sorry if there's any confusion there.
No, I just think it's just to make it clear for everyone. So the growth of the businesses. So if you were going to give some new how do you call it, social entrepreneurs,
yeah,
advice how to start the work and how to grow themselves, just what is the basic thing that they could focus on to start with to grow themselves?
I'm going to go back to my slide because I think it kind of gives a really great picture of how to grow yourself. So when we look then at how to grow yourself, the first starting point, I'd say, is with your capacity, because you can't give what you don't have. So from the perspective of running a business and from the perspective of developing your capacity and your capability, I'd say for an individual to be able to grow themselves, it's important to take an initial personal audit. And that personal audit in business terms could be called a SWOT analysis. Let's have a look at what your personal strengths are, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. In understanding what those four key elements are, it then enables you to put a system or a structure in place where you can increase your capacity for more. Where those respective gaps can be found could be real clear indicators of the type of skills base that you need. If I can go back to this model here, where we look at the staff and the skills that are required, then once as the individual entrepreneurs have taken a personal skills audit, and they can see where their gaps are, they are then able to identify the type of skills or staff that they need to buy in order to ensure the sustainability of the service and to ensure that they're able to meet all the points or the elements of strategic and systemic advancement.
So what is your general view of the UK, the social entrepreneurs in the UK? Are they doing well?
Business at the moment, social enterprise at the moment, I think this is probably one of the best times for any individual to start a social enterprise. And I think those people who are already running a social enterprise, I think it's a great opportunity. In terms of whether or not they're doing well, I think when we look at the political landscape of the UK, I think when we look at the social landscape of the UK, with crisis comes opportunity, and social entrepreneurs are responding to the crisis within the community. So we look at crime statistics, we look at unemployment statistics, we look at the social care challenges, we look at challenges within education. There are opportunities in those respective spaces for social entrepreneurs to bring solutions. I think that those governments, both local and central, they are concerned with the solutions that social enterprises, social entrepreneurs bring to the table, because it's in those solutions that we are able to bring about reformation. It's in those solutions that we're able to bring about transformation to those respective community groups. So in order to answer the question, are they doing well? I think it's a twofold. I think yes, but also there is plenty of opportunity to do even better because of some of the challenges and crisis that we are facing at the moment within our respective communities.
So if they were going to have some advice from you, how does it work? Book an appointment with you, or how?
Yes,
Okay.
it's that easy.
Okay.
It's that easy. They can email me, they can book an appointment, and what we would do is an initial audit to find out where they are, what's the challenge, what level of support that they need, and whether or not we can actually support, or whether or not we need to refer them on to another type of organisation. It really depends on what the key goal for the organisation and what their strategic vision looks like.
Great. I have a question from Joy from Facebook. She's saying that she has a company today and she does a lot on social media platform, but she is not good at public speaking. So what would be your advice to try to overcome that fear talking in front of a lot of people?
I think that's a really great question. Thank you, Joyce, so much. I think one of the interesting things here, research shows that public speaking is probably everybody's biggest fear. But there's a famous saying that says, feel the fear and do it anyway. And sometimes I think one of the ways of overcoming the fear of public speaking is to do it more and more and more. And it seems a little bit of a paradoxical response to the question. But what I've learned in my experience and what I've observed from some of my clients, the more you do something, the more you practice, it improves your competency. And the more you improve your competency, then it erodes away the fear that you feel. Now, there are cases in some instances where fear will never ever go away because it's a legitimate emotion to the response that you're facing. So if we focus on the skill of the communication as opposed to the emotion of fear, then hopefully, Joy, that can help you overcome elements of the fear. But I go with the famous saying that says, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Talking for myself, it is easier said than done, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely it is.
Feel the fear. I still like dentists. I don't like dentists, but I have to do it. So
yes, but the thing is, I think on that point, when you're communicating with the public, especially on social media, and from any platform for that matter, when you're communicating with the public, they've got to see your confidence. They've got to be able to see your knowledge. They've got to be able to understand that you are quite skilled and knowledgeable about your respective areas. So there may be an element of fear, but what I've found is that the more you improve your competency, the more you improve your capacity for more, then it erodes the feeling of fear. Because if we're afraid to talk about our knowledge base, if we're afraid to bring our truth to the platform, then how will we ever be able to make that impact or have the level of influence that we're looking for?
So if I ask you, sorry, you can.
Go ahead.
No, so if I ask you another question, how can I overcome? How can I improve my confidence? No, you know, competency. So you say going away and learn more and read more and practice more to improve your skills, right? Is it what we should do?
I think there are many components to this. So yes, I think there's an element of personal responsibility that we need to take in terms of improving our own capacity for more. But once we've done that, then it becomes, back to Joy's point, about public speaking, about putting yourself in front of different audiences, about putting yourself on different platforms in order to practice the delivery of that knowledge. Because the acquisition of knowledge is one thing, but it's more about the communication of what you've learned in order to impact or get that key message to the audience that you're speaking to. So I think there is a component of practice, there is a component of acquiring more knowledge. I think there is a component of personal responsibility. I think there is also a component of understanding that the fear may not go away, but if you're able to face everything and rise, then that's where the success is. The success is in your ability to manage those emotions. And when we teach about emotional management sometimes says that we've got to compartmentalize some of those feelings in order to make that quantum leap to where we want to go, because the fear may not actually go away.
Yeah, emotional management is, I write down, it's very good to know. And Joy, thank you for your advice, and she would go away and use it, I believe. So I have some other questions for you.
Okay.
In England, if we are talking about your organization, you are working in England to provide care, right?
Yes.
Yes. So what areas are you providing your services?
When you say, do you mean what geographical areas?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, across London.
Across London.
Across London for care services, but for advice and consultancy, that's across the UK.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Advice UK and Care London.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a team of business developers who are trying to get new businesses and like sales team?
Yes. So at the moment, I have a fabulous team of around 80 staff. Predominantly, the majority of them work in the care side of the business, and I have a smaller team who work with the consultancy side of the business. And again, depending on the requirements of the clients, then I'm able to call in expertise from different areas if there are gaps in my knowledge, for example.
So you are very clear on what you can deliver and what you cannot deliver.
Very clear, yes.
Yes. No, because this is what you were saying before. You know, it is to do the SWOT analysis and to find out what you are best at and what you're less good at to improve yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So the truth is, I've had to do my own personal SWOT analysis and find where my own personal gaps are and where business development is concerned in my own personal growth environment. If there are things that I feel need to be developed, then I have a team of associates and colleagues that I can call on to feed into that area.
Perfect. It sounds very good to me. And so the 7S structure that you had before,
Yeah.
is it something that you have created, or is it something that is a theory from somewhere?
Yeah, yes. Oh, my apologies. I thought I had put that on. I thought I'd said that earlier. It's actually also referred to as the McKinsey model.
Oh,
So it's
sorry.
not,
I think it's me. I missed that one. Yeah.
okay, so it's not my creation at all. It's the McKinsey model. And actually, I first came across it when I was doing a study. So there's an author by the name of Jim Collins. He has a couple of books, but one in particular called Good to Great.
Mm-hmm.
And then he further his second book is called Great by Choice.
Yeah.
And then his third book is called Built to Last. So it's in those books that he I was doing some research, and he was doing the research around some organizations, and those organizations that were most sustainable and most financially viable, what type of models or structures did they employ for their respective organizations. And I stumbled across this model, the 7S model or the McKinsey model, and found it absolutely fantastic, because we're able to use it to feed into any organization in terms of where they are, and having a look at the 7 key areas of any organizational's lifespan, from introduction phase to growth phase to maturity phase to decline stage, to be able to have a look at the respective strategies that will be required at each phase of their life cycle.
It is very good to know. If we go back a little bit further about the influence, about the 7 quality that you need to have: capacity, capability, consistency, chemistry, and different things, that the 7 C's that you have here. Yes. So it is also another model. It is it also from your research, from those books?
Yes. So I found the model from on the slide. If I can quickly go back to it. So this model here is the McKinsey model.
Yep.
And then let's see. Then this model here is a personal growth model. I adapted this from John Maxwell's model. He speaks of no limits. So in there, he's really talking about developing a space where entrepreneurs, leaders can develop themselves. So I literally adapted the model to make it fit for purpose for social entrepreneurs.
Great. It is very good. So what is your goal for 2020?
Wow, that's a fabulous question, and it's really quite timely that you ask, because I'm very much goal orientated and very much solution focused. So my goals are kind of categorized, if you like, into 4 different areas around fitness, faith, family, and finance. So my business goals, if you like, are centered around business growth, staff retention, making sure that we deliver a better quality of care. But there's also something to be said around the changing nature of care, and being able to keep up to date with the technological advances that are coming into our industry. So over the next few years, we'll be heavily investing time, energy, and resource into looking at what does the future of care look like, given that the UK has an aging population, given that we have limited resource, looking at what does that mean for PJ's Community Services as an organisation. At the same time, I'm always developing the consultancy side of the business, because there is a level of personal and leadership development that I'm able to offer with my team and with my associates, that we are able to offer to other social entrepreneurs, both in the UK and internationally. So over the next few years, those are the key areas that we'll be looking at. And on a personal level, I've taken on some study commitments in order to increase my capability of being able to deliver in that respective space.
Go back to what you said before about the future of care.
Yes.
What is your vision that the future of care could be in the next 5 years? My mother-in-law is in the care home, and I don't know what would happen in the next 5 years. How would it influence the lives of the older people in care?
I think that's a really great question. I think, given the limited resource that the country has and that individuals have, I think with the resource that we have, there needs to be a significant investment in care as a sector, in terms of the training and upskilling of staff, individuals that are able to provide care. I think the best place for care to be delivered is within an individual's home, especially when their needs are not overly complex. I think complex care most definitely has a place in an institution. But I think the future of care would be some sort of digitalized platform where family members are able to provide care for their loved ones and buy in the care that they are not able to offer because of commitments, maybe work commitments, child or other dependency commitments. But I think the future of care is paramount to our communities right now, because we have an aging population.
So we are very close to the time. I need to ask you this question. So you are saying, like, kind of, we try to go back again to care for our own parents and look after them, and if there is some medical care that we can't give to our family, we can outsource it to someone or buy it somewhere.
My heart is speaking here on this answer, because I see it at the coalface. The service users who we provide care for, the best results in terms of the quality of their life, the best results are when they have access to their family. Now, I know it might not be realistic for individuals to look after their families 24 hours a day. Of course, it may not be. They have financial obligations, they have to go to work. In some cases, they have children that they have to look after. And it's not necessarily that I mean individual family members have to do the actual care, but when care is provided in the context of an individual's home, so you're able to buy in the services of a care provider into the home of that individual. I think that's where the future needs to be, because institutionalized care comes with a complete different set of ramifications. And I know that there is a space for it. I know that there is a need for it, but I'm just saying from my experience, the best results are when individuals are cared for in their own homes, surrounded by their family, but the care doesn't necessarily have to be delivered by their family because of the respective circumstance. Of course, it comes with a financial implication. Of course, it comes with regulatory challenges that we need to be able to manage. But I think all of those things in place, then that's where we need to be looking to for the future of care.
Agree. I have one last question.
Okay.
The thing is about education and women. They're also something that you are working on, but I never asked you about those. Can you quickly brief on what you are doing in that areas?
So the work that I'm doing with women is predominantly around leadership and empowerment. So I run a number of training programs for women, teaching them leadership skills, empowerment skills, centered around the framework of their respective businesses. I do this in the UK, I do this internationally, and on many different technological platforms. The drive there, if you like, is really about empowering women to add value to society, to community in so many more different ways, other than just being a childcare provider.
Thanks a lot, Claudine. And I can't see any more questions, but I think this was great. It was very inspiring to hear from you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wish you a lot of success.
Thank you.
And if you could share your PowerPoint and your contacts, people would get in touch with you just if they wanted to have some advice or some consultancy from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But thanks a lot, and thank you everyone for your questions and for listening in the last hour.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I say goodbye here, and see you again next week.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.